Welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, the only daily enabling platform for small businesses. Over the past 7 years, we've understood what matters the most to you, the entrepreneur. And in year 8, we're taking head-on 2 of your most pressing concerns, that are funding and mentoring. I'm Sunanda Jayaseelan. Tonight on the show, 2 disruptor conversations. First up is Bounce Mobility Solutions. On the other side of a break is ToneTag. Started off as a luxury motorcycle maker in 2014, Bounce Mobility Solutions realized very quickly that the real opportunity in India lies when it comes to understanding how the shared mobility space works. I spoke with the CEO to understand how they're disrupting the way that transport is really being done in some of the urban markets, particularly in Bengaluru, where the opportunities lie, and what advice he would have for his fellow entrepreneurs. Take a listen. Vivek, good having you here on the show. It's always exciting to talk to an entrepreneur, particularly one like yourself, who in the space of 1 year has suddenly exploded on the Bangalore market. And the transport space is definitely seeing a lot of attention. The mobility space is seeing a lot of attention. So why don't we kick this off by asking you to talk about Bounce, talk about the journey. You do a couple of different things in the mobility space. Run us through that.
So we started as a luxury motorcycle rental business in 2014. And last few years have been really great in terms of traction. We started in 2014 renting Harley Davidson, Royal Enfield kind of motorcycles. We felt that India as such is a country with young population, right? So a lot of aspiring set of people who can't afford luxury motorcycles or who don't see economic value in owning one. So we started with this idea that our users could actually have access to big motorcycles like Harley Davidson without having to own one. So that's the idea we started with in 2014, and we grew that. We grew that business into about 10 cities. In 2016, we came across mobility as such. Then we realized that mobility is really broken in India. So only 18% of the population have access to personal mobility. The rest depend on public transport. Public transport hasn't scaled. And added to this, we have urbanization, which most of at least India is seeing in a crazy way. More and more people coming to the cities in search of livelihood, which means that there is only this much of road. The infrastructure was is not easily scalable, and you have more people traveling on the road. So this problem will not get solved on its own. And so government's biggest worry is how do you solve for congestion? Cities lose a lot of money because of the congestion, right? So we figured, how can we solve this? So we realized that central government has a mandate saying that every city with more than 1 million population should start working on a mass rapid transport,
sure,
be it a metro rail or a monorail. Our thesis was pretty simple. People will use mass rapid transport because they save time. Anyone given a choice of being stuck in a traffic as against going on a metro rail, we thought people will choose metro rail because it saves time. But at the same time, the biggest friction would be that how do they get there?
Yeah.
So we wanted to solve this. When we started Mobility Play as such in 2016, we wanted to solve this. And we looked across opportunities. How are people solving this across the globe? Say if you take Indonesia, Indonesia is a big bike taxi market.
Sure.
If you see how it has been solved in US then, this was in 2016,
sure,
probably there is a cab that you take or probably you walk. The penetration is so good that you can walk to a nearby metro station. We're trying to understand what is the right solution for India. We took some time but figured that there's no need for a driver when we talk about two-wheeler. So there were a few rationalizations that we did. One saying that, okay, which is the right vehicle for India? We felt that two-wheelers are the right vehicle for India.
And it definitely is a huge market when it comes to the two-wheeler space.
Absolutely.
Your specific model is based on largely dockless,
yes,
is based, of course, on the fact that you're using technology,
yes,
on bikes that you are getting from your OEM providers. Very briefly, just talk about this model for us.
So going back from where I was saying, so if two-wheelers are a big hit, why should people buy a two-wheeler if they just have to go from point A to point B? So how can we make sure that one vehicle can be used by various set of people was the idea. So using technology, what we have done is we have given them the comfort, we give our users the comfort of their own personal vehicle, but they pay only for the time and distance they use.
Sure.
So what we do is we take off-the-shelf scooters. We have an IoT play on this. We make the scooters keyless, and a user can find the scooter on the app, book the nearest scooter, gets a one-time password, places a one-time password on the scooter, vehicle unlocks, he rides it himself, parks it in legal parking, walks away. That becomes a pickup point to the next user.
Sure.
So we're giving the convenience of a personal scooter, but they don't have to own one.
So for an entrepreneur watching this interview who perhaps is looking at fundraising, would you say that fundraising was your biggest challenge, and maybe the one thing that you want them to know that you perhaps wish that you had known about fundraising before you started?
Fundraising is super important in the business that we are in because it needs a lot of capital, and it's a very highly scalable business. So you can't run it like a traditional shop, as in it can't be a traditional rental business. And the biggest win of this shared mobility is network effect. For network effects to kick in, the supply has to be really good.
Sure.
So funding is something which is really needed. You can't think that I'll be profitable with something and I'll scale this.
Sure.
One thing that we would change now was that we spent a lot of time initial days not talking to VCs. We were initially hesitant, saying that, hey, will they be excited? We don't have enough data. It's just data. We have never done this. There is no comparisons. So we were kind of hesitant, I guess.
All right. So that's as far as the funding bit is concerned. But what other challenges does this industry face? Most people who are in the transportation / mobility solution space are talking about the basic infrastructure. For the electric vehicle space, perhaps it is the charging infrastructure. For players like yourself, what perhaps are the biggest challenges? How do you see those changing?
See, we've been really lucky in the way we are solving mobility as such. We don't have to manufacture two-wheelers. There's a great ecosystem of vehicle manufacturers. The scooters are produced in large numbers. The ecosystem around servicing these vehicles is not a headache. There are a lot of authorized service centers. Sure. We don't have to tell people how to ride the scooters. There's no learning curve there. People know how to ride two-wheelers. The license around people having driving license is already there. Okay. And there's a culture of learning how to ride a scooter even before you own a scooter.
Sure.
So I think a lot of things have fallen in place for us. And the biggest challenge has been, how do we make the scooter keyless, the electronics around it. When I talk about challenges around IoT, hardware, most of the things that we have been doing around this is being done for the first time. How do we provide for network not being available? What do we do when the network drops? Because the whole of the solution is based on trackers. So how do you make sure that the scale at which this operates, the platform don't crash? Or parking, how do we shape behavior? Because we don't have a driver here, right? I guess this is one of the solution where there is no one monitoring what you're doing. And so it's like a self-serve, right? So you pick up a scooter, you leave it there, and we are highly dependent on consumers to get new consumers.
Sure.
So only if you leave the bike in the right place, we get the next user to get the bike in the right way, and he does the ride. So I think the consumer behavior shaping using tech has never been done before.
Okay.
So tech is a challenge in terms of talent, because not many electronic engineers here, or not many firmware, hardware engineers.
Sure.
So the talent for this is something which is super tough to get. And most of the things have never been done before, so you can't just say that I have done this before and will try. The uncertainties are really high.
Sure.
And it's an operation-heavy game as well.
Okay. Your dockless bikes are available only in Bangalore, I understand, for the moment.
Yeah.
And my question really is that a product like yours, is it perhaps going to see its largest demand coming in from your metro areas? How about the tier 3s and tier 4s as well?
See, I think one way to look at this is how are the scooters doing when people buy scooters.
Sure.
Scooters are sold across India, right? I think in those places where there's no personal mobility, as in there's no public transport.
Sure.
So we think scooters are very natural. It can do well across cities, irrespective of whether it's a metro city, tier 1, tier 2 kind of thing. So we think it's a all-India kind of, pan-India kind of play, irrespective of whether the city has a metro or not. So I think this one solution which is affordable, sustainable, so it can fit in anywhere.
Okay. One of the larger expenses of your model is the fuel cost that is involved, but I do understand that you are looking at going electric as well. Are you looking in the EV space?
I think it's a natural choice for any mobility player.
Okay.
For any mobility company, the biggest cost is fuel. I guess even for the country, the biggest imports that we do is fuel. So fuel is like the biggest expense that any company and mobility will have across. So like I said, even aviation, that's the biggest cost. So at least we have the luxury of getting to EV as such. So EV is a natural choice. We're doing a lot of work on EV. So we're working with a lot of players, making sure that the vehicles are stable, vehicles are sturdy. For a consumer, it shouldn't be a very different experience. Because we are used to a certain set of scooters that we are riding. So how do we make sure that the vehicles which are running on the roads are sturdy enough, can last longer? What do we do about battery efficiencies? What are the charge cycles of the batteries? So a lot of challenges around EV, but we are making sure that we get there fast. And we also believe that we will be the forefront in adapting EV, which will help B2C use case, as in consumer use case to happen. Because I guess because we save a lot of money, we will end up building the infra and at least accelerating the infra because we can give volumes. The second we can give volumes, we can nudge players across the industry to do something about EV. Be it a battery swapping infra, be it charging infrastructure, be it an electric scooter manufacturer. We can nudge everyone because we have volumes. So we'll play a very important role in EV adaptation is what we believe.
Okay, let's close this interview then by talking about what plans you have next. During the course of this conversation, you said there is no comparative model like what you're doing.
Yes.
So perhaps are you looking at markets outside of India maybe next? What next for you?
So scale this across India. India is a big market. Make the solution work, make the solution scalable, hire the right set of people, and grow. This is the basic thesis that we have. So, and definitely we'll try to replicate this in markets where we can make more money by doing the same things that we are doing. So we'll go after cities which are climate conducive, which has enough sun, and has a scooter culture. These are two things that we'll look for, and we'll try and replicate wherever there is a scooter culture.
Wish you all the very best.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time here.
Thanks.
Time for a break. On the other side, how is sound being harnessed to change the way you and I pay for things? Much more on that with this disruptor on the other side. Just stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. Our second disruptor tonight is ToneTag. In the second very fascinating conversation tonight, I sat down with ToneTag to understand how this Bengaluru-based company is betting big when it comes to the use of sound waves and disrupting the digital payments market. I asked him what it means to be a young entrepreneur, what innovation really means when it comes to the fintech and digital payment space, and also why he's so excited by the opportunity that's being presented by Bharat or the markets really outside of urban India, and what he feels entrepreneurs should do to tap into that opportunity. Listen. What do you want for our viewers to know about ToneTag, Kumar?
Well, ToneTag is a product which is basically a software product which we have built that uses sound waves, right? These are sound which is around us, right? It could be your phone making a sound, a TV making a sound, or the sound which is in the ambient around you. We can use that to do data transfer, right? And can solve issues in fields like payments, communication, interaction, discovery. And we are very much focused in using this tech for offline commerce.
Okay, so where did the idea for this really come about? Because from what I understand, there are not too many companies globally as well, not just in India, who are perhaps using this model, who have realized that this is an opportunity to solve issues like you're saying of payments, communication, etc.
We are using mobile banking apps, right? But those apps can only show you balances, transaction history, and stuff like that. But I thought, why can't I use this same app and same phone to also make payments, correct? And then I saw that an opportunity that if I can solve two issues. Number one, that I build something which can work on every phone, right, and not only smartphone.
Sure.
And number two, that if my product can bring an experience which is better than the other two things which consumer use to make payments, like cash and card, then I think I'm up to something, correct? And sound happened because I was trying to solve these two things, right? Because sound is the only tech which we have which can work on every consumer handheld device, whether it's a feature phone or smartphone, correct? And from an experience perspective, right, today, we can proudly say that the stack which we have built on sound wave communication brings a far better experience than the way you pay in cash or card.
Okay.
Correct?
Has that been your biggest strength? The fact that you're not necessarily restricted to, say, smartphones, and you're not even restricted to just phones. It could be other devices as well.
It took us 3 years of research. So although we started in 2014, but we went commercialized. We were able to commercialize it only in mid 2016, right? Wherein today we have 17 patents filed globally. And very recently, we won a patent in Japan as well, and we're the only company in this stack to have such a global presence, right? So definitely, I think because we are able to use a software to solve or enable any kind of device to communicate using sound waves, I think that is definitely a very big strength which this tech commands today globally.
Okay. As someone who's in a space which is so nascent because there's no one else doing this, as someone who's figuring out where the future really lies and where you want to take the company and the product and technology that you have, what has been the role of the government? What should be the role of government for products like yours?
Yeah, so I think I'll divide it into two. One is that how we look at government and the support and stuff, right? And second is what else we want from the government, right? So I think we have been slightly lucky that way. I think these past years and the space where we are, for example, the first space we wanted to solve was financial services, which is payments, correct? And that has been, that space has got a lot of support from this government, right? Definitely from demonetization to a lot of other kind of supports, right? So there I think we were lucky being in this industry. What we need definitely is easing out of some of the nuances. See, because we are trying, and that's that I can say with confidence for every entrepreneur in this country, right? We are trying to bring India on the global roadmap, correct? And companies moving away from India is not a good sign, correct? Okay. Going and opening offices in Singapore is not a good sign. So there I think some more focus is required. We are delighted the way, for example, when we bring up the issues on the forums like NASSCOM or other such places, government is listening.
Okay. Speaking of the ecosystem, I also want to talk about the role of the RBI, particularly given that you are in the payment space as well. And you believe that your product is safer than the two-step authentication process where you get the OTP, etc. Just run us through that.
All the time there has to be transition, right? Any product you build, right, it's good for some time and then you have to transition it. When OTP was brought up, we had challenges on the infrastructure and things like that. So it was a very beautiful product then. But over the time, people have figured out, right, how to use OTP to hack accounts, right? How to change the SIM by giving you a call on something. And then that SIM gets replaced, wherein now your account OTP is coming to me. Correct? So I think that needs, and hence we need a more advanced systems. Okay. What sound does basically is that it's no more static code sitting and coming through a SMS rail on your phone. Okay. Correct? Rather, we can create a dynamic number, real time, right, with a timestamp, and then encrypt it from point-to-point encryption, right, and relay it over a sound wave. Now, there could be 64 sound frequencies and one of them carrying this OTP, right? Today, for example, you can download a QR scanner from any of the Play Store and scan any QR which you see, and you can get a data, what the QR code is carrying. Okay. So you've got the data. The only good thing which saves the fraud there is that the data is encrypted. But the sound, you can't even get the data, because you don't know out of 64 frequencies which one is carrying the data, right?
Okay, so we are here, of course, sitting in your head office in Bangalore, talking about how a product like yours perhaps can be used. You go to a coffee shop, you don't need to speak to anyone, you order your product, you order your coffee, etc. It comes to your table. But what's the use for a product like yours outside of the metros? Just talk us through the cases that you're seeing where your product can be used there.
Sound is around us, right? It doesn't space out, right? In the sense that it is not an infrastructure which could be only available in metro and not in rural, right? People speak in rural, right? Their phones make noises in the rural as well, correct? And hence, this tech is something which fundamentally solves issues, right? Without this whole infrastructure need. So definitely in metros, we give a better experience to consumer, right? They never have to go to a cashier, right? When they are in retail space. And in rural, what we want is that with farmers having now a bank account. Now, another very good thing which the government did, right? Now, everybody has got a bank account. Now, with the Manrega and all the subsidies sitting in their bank account, if they can use their phone to make payments to the local merchant, who also has a phone. And if not a phone, now we have very low cost handled merchant acceptance devices which we can give, correct? So then a beautiful ecosystem gets created there. Because now the farmer who has a money in the bank account doesn't have to waste one day to go to a nearby town and withdraw cash. And then what is happening? 29 days he is using cash for everything.
Sure.
Although he has a phone, he has a bank account, there's money in the bank account. All if we can do is that like he dials a phone number, if he can dial a number and tap the merchant device and a payment can happen, it's beautiful.
Over the course of this conversation, you were talking about the endless possibilities for a product like yours. So let me end this interview then by asking you, where next? In the space of a couple of years, you've managed to gain the kind of traction that you have. In the short term, where do you see yourself?
So I think in next 24 months, we are not a consumer-facing product, right?
Yeah.
We sit inside apps and all. But with very high confidence, what we can say is that the way you as a consumer or I as a consumer go and do our offline shopping is going to change forever, correct? This change in terms of experience would be very similar to the way today you take your taxi ride, right? With Ola and Uber, the kind of transformation you see in your taxi ride experience is similar or maybe a little more profound than that is what's going to come to you when you go for your offline shopping in next 24 months.
Okay, wish you all the best, Kumar.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time here on the show.
Thanks.
Completely out of time on this disruptor conversation tonight. If you have any feedback for us, our contact details in just a moment on your screens. Do get in touch. We love hearing from you. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.